Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to, what is today? May 19th, 2022, our work session. Glad to see everyone here today. Happy faces. Everybody's stressed out, but look, we're nearing the end. It's just coming to an end fast. Something every day, every night. You have to look at your schedule to see what you've got going on. But welcome. Glad you're here. At this time, we're going to talk about budget amendments. And Susan Mizelle would bring us that information and clue us in.
Good afternoon. So today I have the next to the last budget amendments for the school year. And I just want to say a few things before I get rolling through the sheets a little bit, because I know they're kind of overwhelming. And especially at this time of year, the explanation box tends to get a little larger because we're starting to close things out and moving things around as we see needs in other places. So I'm just going to try to summarize it as best I can. So the first one in your packet should be the State Public School Fund. And what you'll see there is we have approximately a $2.7 million increase. We are still, as of today, receiving allotments in from DPI. I would expect we're probably going to see some increases in the next budget amendment too, because they're just behind. Everything is behind because of the budget being behind.
Out of curiosity, how many budget amendments have you had this year from the state?
Oh Lord, I think we are on 56 now. Yep, and most of that has happened since November. So that $2.7 million increase, that's coming from our ADM bump. We got a couple new grants, and we still got allotments that are dropping in. So that's where the 2.7 comes in from. The adjustments that we do it's a zero effect. So what you see down there in that explanation box encompasses both. Any questions before I move on to the next one? No? Okay. Next one in your packet is the local expenditures or the current expense fund. And as you see, what I was talking about before, this is all budget transfers, so the net effect here is a zero increase. And again, we're moving around funds, getting ready for year end. The next one in your packet is the federal expenditures. There we had a $131,144 increase. We've got sales tax refunds that hits most of those federal programs, so that's what's showing up there, in addition to we had 5 allocations that came in for the federal programs. The next one in the packet is capital outlay, which is always the peewee of the group. We had a $174,000 approximately increase there, and the bulk of that is coming from the new K-12 athletic facilities grant that we got. We've got acquisition of school buses, and that's one of those weird things that gets everybody confused because we don't actually pay for the buses. The DPI gives us the money for it, so we have to budget the money and then we book an expense. So it's an accounting treatment. It looks like it increases funding, but there's no cash here. And then the last one in your packet is the other local expenditures. That one was an increase of $44,917. And that is anything that's not coming from the county. We put in other local revenues. So it's like Chromebooks, Medicaid money that comes in. And there's also sales tax refund here too. So that's what caused the increase. Any questions?
I'd just like you to make a further comment. You mentioned about moving money around, and I don't want anybody to think suspect. It's the fact that we want to spend all the state money.
Yes.
And
yes,
not give any back.
And as they continue to drop state and federal funds in, then that's something that we can use rather than local. And yeah, it's a logistical nightmare.
But these amendments are pleasant this time, correct?
Yes. Yes, we shouldn't fuss about money coming in, even though it's coming in late.
But we're still not up to 3 months in the general fund, 3 months operating expense in our general fund.
No.
So we've still got work to do.
All right, any other questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Mizelle. Our facilities and construction update, Dr. Matthew Lutz.
Thank you. Well, as of this morning, at 11 o'clock, there were 706 students enrolled at Noack Elementary. 631 with one more coming to Scarborough tomorrow. All the other numbers are fairly steady throughout the year. We continue to see growth in the two Mullins elementary schools. All right. Matt, you want to walk us through this initial part? Give us some highlights.
No problem. So basically on Noack Elementary School, the foundation is being poured in phases. The block walls are going up in phases, and all of the rough end for plumbing and conduit and things of that nature are going in phases as they move to the next foundation pour, they rough end the conduit. So Noack Elementary School is moving along. We finalized the playground information this week and the design of the playground, and Ms. Kelly took a look at it, agreed to it. It should have been ordered this week sometime, so it should be. They haven't told me, but I know when he says he's doing something, he does it. Noack Middle School, basically underground utilities are being relocated right now, and they're waiting for the end of school so they can ramp up the interior work. They want to do the interior work before they do the exterior, and they can't do anything on the interior until school is out. They have to install egress doors in some of the classrooms due to the fact that they're closing off the ends of each wing. So they need to install egress doors to get out of the building until the construction is over. So they're temporary, they could be permanent, we don't know. 2-week look ahead. The Noack Elementary School project, they plan to complete the dining area footings and start pouring slabs, starting the next sections of masonry, and start blocking and building the elevator shaft, and continue the plumbing and electrical rough end. Noack Middle School, basically the big boom for the multi-purpose room, starting on the cafeteria, and cutting in the egress doors will start on the 31st. So we've been moving equipment, moving things out of closets, getting things ready for them to work. So that's where we are right now.
Expected completion dates on both?
They're both all looking summer of next year so we can start school. So it's on target.
We need it to be.
Yeah, it has to be. They know that.
And going back to the playground equipment, when you said it's going to be ordered, do you expect it here before school starts?
No.
No.
No. Lead times a few months ago were 16 weeks. What did the email say was called? October? Yeah, they're thinking December because anything that has polymers and plastics in it, you can't get right now. So and we're looking at December.
So when it gets delivered, it will be, I mean, they'll be ready to put it in?
It'll be a turnkey installation. Basically, the company we ordered from, when it comes in, they will come in and install it.
Because I was at Noack Elementary today, and Miss Kelly and I, there were a lot of kids out there and they're playing on that one little tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, about that last month, that's why I was just asking. Thank you.
So are the egress doors like one on each wing, is that basically?
Yes, there's one on each of the wings, and it's in the last classroom. 6th grade, 7th grade hall, it's in the last classroom on the left, and the 8th grade hall, it's in the last classroom on the right. And they'll be putting in temporary rubberized sidewalks for egress. So, like I said, the plan is to put windows back when the construction is phasing in.
All right, I'm going to take us through a timeline now of, we had a meeting regarding a bond referendum in March, and I want to bring everyone up to speed as to how we got there and where we're at moving forward. So in July 2020, some members of the Board of Ed and Board of Commissioners, we got together and had a discussion that centered around the potential for 2 new elementary schools and a new middle school. I start with that because This was kind of where our guide, we need two more, we need 2 elementaries and we need another middle school. In April of 2021, we purchased land off of Tulls Creek Road for a new elementary school. We are continuing to move forward with that project. There are no delays. The county commissioners just approved another phase of that on their consent agenda on Monday. In May of 2021, at a joint meeting, both of our boards got together and agreed to expansion projects that were slated to be functional in 2023, which Matt just spoke of, and modular units were approved for the 21-22 school year. In October, this past October, we had another joint meeting. We had an ORED capacity study presented from North Carolina State, and we had a 10-year facility needs study. And that showed that we had $51 million in capital needs across our buildings. After we went through those studies, we had a discussion around a possible bond referendum to address the growth. And this discussion stems from those initial, a year and a half ago, saying we're going to need 2 new elementaries and a middle school. So we also approved additional modular units at that time, and we're going to have 6 more classrooms added to Mayock Elementary School starting next year. These are just snapshots of those studies that are available. This is the ORED capacity study. Again, there are 3 capacity numbers that float around and say, what's the capacity? The capacity that the ORED study uses is the one that we gave to the county. And you can see red is not good. The different reds mean a little bit more. So you can see Mayock Elementary's 528 capacity. Currently we have 706 students there. We use every nook and cranny of that building to make sure to provide an education. Randy Kelly and her staff have done an outstanding job of being accommodating and making things work. And Ms. Rodriquez cafeteria staff has been providing meals from Mayock Middle School. Again, they have a great system set up, but everyone has been working together so we get to where we need to be. So if you take a look at the next slide, what we're showing here is the top one is what we just looked at, the 528 number for Mayock Elementary and 640 for Mayock Middle School. The one for each draft has a 770 number, which will be our new capacity at Mayock Elementary School when the projects are completed, and 800 at Mayock Middle School. Put those on there to see that we still have real needs coming up in the future. While we are addressing our current needs, we are going to have significant needs in the future.
Yeah, but when the new elementary school comes online, the Shopper and the Mayock Elementary numbers will go down.
They will go down. And I'm estimating between 500 and 600 students a building to start.
Okay, that's 24, 25.
That could be as early as 24, 25, but it will be by 25, 26 for sure.
So when the expansion is complete, it will allow for 770 children,
Yes,
and right now we have 706.
correct.
So we can have 64 more children.
That's why we need
That.
the new elementary school, because the projection number for moving forward with Mayock Elementary in 23-24 is almost 800 students.
When that school opens, when the expansion opens,
We'll still be overcrowded. But we'll
We'll
still have our modular units in place. So we'll be able to weather that period of time because we have the modular units in place. We'll open up the new building and there'll be space, and then we'll move and open up the new building.
so the 770 does not include the space from the modulars.
Correct.
And then also, like Jarvisburg is in the orange and red, but we know that Griggs is not. So when we make that adjustment and move those boundaries, we can move things then.
Yes.
And not have but one boundary change.
That would be ideal.
So we're talking about the boundary change when we open up these expansion projects? Is that what you're saying?
No.
When the new school, so the year before the new school opens, we will be having extensive discussions regarding redistricting the elementary schools and the middle schools.
And that's 24, 25 we're shooting for?
It could be, but it is for sure 25, 26. That, Matt and I, when we're in the meetings, it could go either way.
And then the modulars, how many students do they accommodate?
Currently the ones we have can accommodate 150, and the new one's gonna be able to accommodate another 150.
Okay.
It'll allow us to get, and Ms. Kelly and I talked the other day, so all decisions we're attempting to make are multiple years out.
So 300 children in the modulars at Mayock Elementary?
Yes. Depending on what age groups are in, based on the regulations.
That is a lot of extra kids
Yeah.
to be served by that cafeteria. And that gymnasium and the staff, that's a lot.
Hopefully we won't reach 1,070 by the time the new school, so we'll be okay.
We think
Well, technically, the septic system can only handle 833, so that's the maximum we can put in there anyway.
833.
Yes.
So we can't go to the 1,000.
well,
No.
as soon as the new elementary school goes up, the better off we're But we will have enough space. Based on these projections, we'll have enough space to accommodate until the new school comes up. March 2022, we had another joint meeting. At that time, we took a look at the facility studies again and the growth projections, and we had a consultant come in who facilitated a discussion about the possibility of a bond being placed on the November 2022 ballot. There were several questions from the commissioners. We've discussed those as a board. I'll make sure that those questions are answered after this presentation tonight. So we recognize the school additions at Mayock Middle School and Mayock Elementary should allow for future growth to 27, 28. We will have a need for an additional middle school and an expanded vocational high school concept within the next 6 years. We need to purchase land for schools in the near future.
Well, you're saying that you recognize the additions will allow for growth through 27, 28, but you also mean the addition of the new elementary school?
Yes,
Okay,
the new elementary school, along with
Okay.
the expansions of these buildings,
yes.
allowed us to have more time to meet the needs.
But then there'll still be a need for the middle school.
Right, middle school and
And
expand
possibly-
something for the high school.
Yes.
Whether it be VOTEC or another.
Yeah.
Within the next 6 years. So,
Based on the ORED projections, which have been they've been accurate. They did praise our county planning department for providing really good data to inform that information. So until we know otherwise, we're going to stick with the numbers that they're giving us, because they're pretty accurate. They're within 20 this year of everything.
okay.
They do not include preschool numbers, and that's why that does change our dynamic at the elementary level.
But that will be helped because we are planning for the preschool at
Yes.
the new Modoc.
Very excited about that we're going to be able to have preschool at all of our northern elementary schools once this new elementary school comes online, which will be great for our kids. They don't have to ride the long bus rides. It'll be better for services. It'll acclimate them to their home school. Everything about it should be better.
But I do think we need to move forward with the county commissioners and purchase that land. Purchase it, have it, hold on to it, because we're gonna need it, we know that. So we really need to get on board with looking for property right now and purchase it and
Making
cash
sure
it out.
where it needs to be.
Yeah.
We do.
And we have one in mind,
Do.
and I was told today of another one, so I'm looking into that a little more.
If we need to move that forward with our commissioners and take it to them and say, here's 2
Yeah.
plots of land. I don't think it's going to get any cheaper.
No.
They have not given us the green light to go on and pick out property yet,
That is
correct?
correct. it's important we have another joint meeting to discuss what we're putting forth here. I think we're showing a tremendous amount of working together, and we're acknowledging that we're working together to stretch our tax dollars as far as we can.
It would be nice if we had those lands that we're interested in purchasing, like at least able to show them that at that joint meeting. I'm assuming we're talking September, October, or
July.
July. Okay.
You gotta keep the cadence.
Okay, you're right.
The long-range facility study showed our buildings have real needs. Mr. Mullins and I have put together a priority list that we outlined over the next few slides, and these items need to be addressed over the course of the next 1 to approximately 8 years. I'm not going to go through each one, but I put this together. It's central. Every building has their highest needs. We did not put a dollar amount to those needs, as that would be very difficult right now with inflation.
So the 51 million was not 51 million that we need right now. We have pressing needs of 51 million, but it's over the course of the next 8 years.
Yes. Yes. I mean, everything that was put on that long-range facility study needs to be done, but there's more important things that are prioritized.
Which you've always done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can't get to where we need to be on $1 million of capital need. Now, the county also has capital needs, and so our desire would be to work together and through their capital building plan and our so that it's all part of the same discussion. Because really the buildings they're our buildings, they're our county's buildings. So as they work through their process, our hope is to be part of that as well.
Well, are you gonna send this presentation to the commissioners?
Yes, and it'll be a public document, but I also think when we meet at our joint meeting, we'll go over this together as well. I did have the opportunity to meet with County Manager this morning, and he is aware of the presentation.
And the original plan to do 2 elementary schools came to us from the county. They
Yes.
suggested that.
Yes.
But that was before we
Got the long
got
range plan.
Well, and before we decided that we could enlarge, renovate, elementary and no.
Original discussion had us needing 2 elementaries and a new middle school
Right.
within 5 years.
Yeah.
And we were able to have a better pace to that with the additions in both of those buildings. So regarding future buildings and long-range facility priorities, we have 3 options to look at. Pay-as-you-go model, that is the preferred model for Currituck County. The bond referendum, and installment purchase financing, which is how Jarvisburg and Chartwell were built. That's similar to a mortgage. So, to that end, the Board of Education will not be formally requesting a bond be placed on the ballot at this time.
So we really will not request that until the commissioners tell us to request that. Until they say, we can't do pay-as-you-go.
There
Or we
has to-
don't want to do installments.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
That becomes your option in 2024.
but they've told us
That they
that they prefer that
Pay as
we,
you go.
no, that we tell them what we prefer. And then they have to be in agreement to move forward. If they come back and say, no, we're not gonna pay as you go, we want you to, do the bond referendum, that's a different story, but we would like to have pay as you go.
But they did indicate the last meeting that they prefer.
Yes, they
pay
did.
as you go.
And they have also indicated to some of us that, it's our job to tell them what we need.
That's right,
And then their job to come up with the funding.
right.
So we certainly want to make sure we tell them what we need.
Right here, first step.
Well, I think this is really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Great job.
We have a great team to help put on this
Yes,
work.
this is
Very
really,
thorough.
really nice, and it's kind of basic, but it tells you the big picture and when we met and what we talked about, and very concise. So I appreciate everybody that works so hard on this information. Any questions from the board members?
I think what Dr. Lutz added to the slides in his speech and talking with us is important to be shared as well.
Yes.
And like Matt's saying, that even though we will have room for 1,000 kids at Mayock Elementary with the modulars, our septic can only handle 833.
Gallons per student.
We learned a lot.
It's not your turn.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. Ms. Virginia Arrington, our student service coordinator.
Hi, good evening. I'm just going to stand back here so I can see. So the state of North Carolina requires that each district have their own AIG plan, and it's a 3-year plan, and every 3 years we have to update that and renew that according to the standards that are put forth by DPI. And the law also states that we have to present the plan to the Board of Education for approval, and once the Board of Education approves it, then we submit it to DPI. So you have in your packet the entire plan. I'm just going to hit some highlights for you this evening. So over the last year, 12 or 14 months, we have met with our stakeholder group to go over the current plan and get feedback from them and talk about how DPI changed the plan. And they didn't really change a lot. So we used the opportunity to look at different topics each meeting and get information from our stakeholders to help with improving our plan. And we had pretty consistent attendance with our stakeholder group, and I'm pretty proud of that. So in our stakeholder group of parents, we had parents from each grade span. We had parents from underrepresented groups, which for us means minority groups, low socioeconomic groups, twice exceptional, which means they could be EC and AIG. And we also had AIG teachers, and we had general ed teachers from each stakeholder group. The first element in our plan is identification. That is the one element that we did not ask for parent feedback for, because we know what data, as school folks, we know what data we need and what criteria best fits for AIG identification. So under identification, just the highlights are we have multiple pathways for identification. We do a universal screener at grade 2, which means we screen every second grader for AIG. We have added 2 rubrics for identification. One is for any identification outside the universal screener, which means if a student is kind of close to being identified, but we need more data, that rubric allows us to collect additional data and then score the value of that data for identification. It also is helpful when we have students that move from out of district to our district for identification. We're also adding a rubric for K2 talent development. So this is one of the improvements that we really wanted to make here in serving K2 students. And the rubric will help us identify appropriate groups of students so that we can develop them appropriately and hopefully move them into the AIG world. One thing that North Carolina legislation also requires us to have is a dispute resolution. So if a parent is unhappy with our decision, there is a means for dispute. So this is how we're going to provide services. We are going to cluster group at elementary school, and what that means is when possible, we will have at least 5 AIG students grouped together in a classroom. We're going to do the K2 talent development as a pullout. We currently do 3-5 pull-out services, and we're going to continue that. In this upcoming plan, we are going to be able to offer middle school services to students, which we have not in the past. And one of the ways is the 6-8 compacted math standards. And then at 9-12, there is a consult service with the AIG teacher, Ms. Rubino, and recently Ms. Rebecca Rawls. They have worked really hard to come up with a system where they are meeting with all the AIG teacher students at the high school and providing them with some services and resources.
Can you elaborate on the K-2 talent development pullout?
Yes, ma'am. So those are students that would be performing above grade level, and it will allow them to be pulled out to enrich what they already know.
With the AIG teacher?
Yes, ma'am.
So is that new for next year?
It is.
Okay, I'm happy to see that.
Do we still teach Math 1 at the middle school?
Yes, we do.
Does that count for AIG?
It does. So with the compacted math standards, we are going back to an accelerated honor 6th grade curriculum and honor 7th grade curriculum to allow for a better background, so to speak, for Math 1 and 8th grade. And so the instructional coaches with Christy are going to work on that pacing guide this summer, so it'll be ready for the fall. Professional development is another big part of the plan, and so opportunities are offered by the AIG teachers or the general education teachers where needs are, which can talk about characteristics of gifted students, so social emotional needs of gifted students, those kinds of things. As far as professional development for the AIG teachers, they meet for collaboration and planning, and they also have opportunities that are available to them. And then lastly, any teachers that are interested in licensure can take the praxis test for AIG. In the past, we've offered a tutorial for that for teachers to help prepare them for the praxis, and we can do that again. We also have several universities that teachers can take a set of classes and have that added onto their licensure. Partnerships and accountability. The AIG teachers work with the school counselors to make sure that students are scheduled appropriately, whether it's the cluster grouping or honors classes, AP classes, those kinds of things. Also assisting them with their social emotional needs. I've met with Ms. Woods, and we are going to look at partnering with CTE to allow for some opportunities with leadership and internship opportunities. And as far as accountability, of course, we collect data on our students and monitor the program to ensure that the students' needs are being met, both academic and social. So at this evening's meeting, the AIG plan is on the consent agenda, and I am requesting that you approve the plan. And once it's approved, we will post it to the website for the public.
So the big changes is providing more services to K-2 and middle school.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Arrington.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Matt Lutz, bring us information concerning the accreditation process.
Sure. In February, if you remember back to that time, we submitted for accreditation approval for us to be reviewed for Currituck County High School by the state and DPI. We hadn't heard anything, and then we did receive word, as is always the case with DPI, that they are restructuring not only the personnel within the accreditation department, but the accreditation process, and we should hear something back from someone soon. So unfortunately, it puts us in limbo. I asked for a time frame and could not be given a time frame. Are we talking about this summer? Are we talking about next year? How far? And they just said we're unsure at this time.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that's the update.
Exactly. All right, student events discussion. I'm looking at you because I know that you want.
I have a list.
So, one of the popular things, and I think it's a great idea, is our senior walkthroughs through our elementary schools, through our middle schools, where the students have gone. And I think it's a great visual for our kids to see, this is the end goal. We're going to graduate, and then we're going to enroll, we're going to enlist, we're going to employ. But to see that. To that end, it's going to take a lot of coordination in our county because of the challenges with length. It can be done, and also the timing. So we always have to make sure that we're including both of our high schools, and the time frame didn't necessarily fit the ability to do it well.
And they
So
have to
we
do
went
it
with
2
that.
different days for JP Knapp and the high school, and I know that we do not have a lot of seniors at our schools on any given day because most or lots are taking the COA classes, but I think both schools have mandatory practice for graduation, so maybe that would be a day that they could just get on buses and go, but I think that would boost our seniors' confidence and a chance for them for us to show how proud we are of them, and then to give the younger ones someone to look up
Yeah,
to.
I think so too. I think it's a great idea. I saw a YouTube video last night, and it was the seniors, and it was get to school any way you can without a car. And it was like a parade for the seniors, and it was hilarious. The types of transportation that they were using, coming in on backhoes, John Deere tractors, horses. Have you seen it? And I thought, God, with us living in a rural area, we would probably have some, a lot of our seniors that would want to participate. And they didn't have to, if they had their car, they could go around, but it was really interesting.
I'm
So
thinking that
something
high
like
school's not located on a main highway,
Right.
much like ours.
That's true. That's true.
But yes, it was very.
Skateboards, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it now.
It is something we've talked about though several years. It always comes up like
It
at
does,
the
right at
very
the end,
end when we
yeah.
see other neighboring schools do it.
Right.
I realize it does take planning, but perhaps we can put that
That would be
on the
great.
list for next year.
Yeah.
To design the list.
Okay, great.
And CTE career fairs. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Do we have one coming? Or
So-
did we recently have one?
So we, with our new CDC, Kelly Greenwell, she was getting her feet wet with exposure to the high school. She has done an amazing job over these past couple of weeks. We've had Food Line come in, H2OBX. Just today we had Hardee's come in. We had a new healthcare, in-home personal care come in. Our students came down to her. We probably had about maybe 6 or 7 different companies come in. And ironically enough, some of the companies had said, we like this because we're spotlighted
Yeah.
versus a career fair, it's, you're farming it out. But we do have that on our plate to look at next year to see how we can do something like that. We have a job board up near the counseling office with lots of, as Ms. Greenwell keeps on telling me, if anybody wants a job,
Yeah.
there is work.
There's work, yes.
So we
Every
are,
time.
and I just have written something up, and we have some pictures to share about some of those opportunities out there for students.
Possibly even at the middle school level and the high school level, and just, I know we have lots of folks in our community, plumbers and heat and air people that would be happy to come in, set up, get it. Kids don't know what they want to do sometimes, and maybe they could talk to people and get the wheels turning.
Haley Bartolotta does a great job with that, the Career Cafe Moments. She has, I think, starting in September, every week, one at the middle school, Currituck Middle School, and then one up in the north end, Morac.
So we tend to do 1 or 2 here and there more than the big day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can look at the big day too. We
Whatever
did look
works.
at the the county's home fair and job fair. We kind of looked at possibly maybe having a section just for students.
Yeah.
But
that'd be
That'd
good.
be nice.
yeah, we will look into that.
Okay.
And of course, our public safety, we always have them come in, our sheriff and.
Yes.
EMS, fire.
Yeah.
Right,
Great opportunity.
okay. Well,
I
good.
think she does it's a great job of advertising it. I've gone to meet a couple, and the kids are looking for the people, like, oh, who's here, who's there? So the teachers are also pumping that up when they come in the cafeteria, they want to go meet. It's neat to see that excitement.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you. And we want to talk about our June and July meetings. What do you think?
So June 29th, at the request of Mrs. Mizelle, this is close to the closeout of the years we can get. And I'd like to meet in July, the 28th, and we'll shoot to do the joint meeting on the same day. The July meeting is for personnel purposes.
Okay.
It largely brief, just so we can get people approved and not wait. And then we can pick up our regular meeting schedule in August and go from there.
Okay.
I guess we'll work through, I won't be here in July.
You
Everyone
taking
else has
July off?
vacation. Well, that week, last week. We are going on vacation like we booked it a year ago. Probably couldn't afford it this year.
That'll largely, our board meeting will be just a personnel
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah.
We need to approve it so we can move forward with the hiring. Those gaps were too long in between. Last year, we did a meeting, well, we didn't, with COVID, we were meeting every 2 weeks.
Right, it seemed like it.
Dr. Denise, did you say you were also gonna look to do the joint meeting on that same date in July?
We are looking to combine those. That's assuming that at least 4 of us can get there, and then commissioners can get there as well.
Okay. Do you have a question?
I do. I just had a couple more questions. I know we do a great job of advertising the athletes who have received scholarships and signing them, and I'd just like to see us, highlight a few more things, those that have signed on for apprenticeships, going to trade schools. We have some students that get scholarships that are worth even more than some of these athletic scholarships. I'd just like to highlight as many students as we can, those entering the military, and
You mean on social media, because
yeah, like
they
we,
did that.
and we see it in the newspaper too, where there's pictures, but
Yeah.
I'd like to do that. I also had talked with you, Dr. Lutz, about possibly asking our county to establish a fund for students wishing to go to COA, kind of like what Dare County is doing. What were your thoughts on that? I know you said recently you thought we were maybe.
So, again, that would be a whole county commissioner's decision. Selena Jarvis is on the board for COA.
Uh-huh.
So I did have a discussion after we toured the buildings
Okay.
about the possibilities of doing that. As far as the other counties on the coast have a pretty robust relationship with COA and do fund those programs. So Carteret County, I thought was particularly interesting. They do a 90-10 model. Instead of you just get everything paid for it, they want you to have some skin in the game. Brunswick was 100%, Dare's 100%. And they do a wonderful job of advertising and pushing those kids in that direction. I had an opportunity to spend an evening with the community college presidents and superintendents, and you got to see these different presentations. So Ms. Jarvis, I know she was interested. I would love to at least start a seed project, a small project, and go from there. Because we certainly could do it. If the will is there, we can make it happen.
I think that would be good. I do value the community college education. I think it's very beneficial for our children. I know I did talk to a commissioner in Dare County, and I think he said they started with like 300,000, and they had not run out of money over a few years, but the plan was to replenish as needed, and that would be a good opportunity. And then I have one more question. Given the rise in food prices and fuel prices, does their budget for next year, are we taking that into consideration?
As much as we can, given the volatility, there is discussion at the state level to increase the funding for fuel as well. Ms. Rodriquez is extremely challenged with the food costs.
I know she is.
Not only can we not get the food that we always want, but the prices are double and triple, and it's a real it's a real concern moving forward. But we haven't seen this type of inflation, as this board knows, since the early 80s. It's the last time we experienced anything like this. So hopefully we see things settle out in terms of how we project our budgets moving forward.
Are we anticipating free lunch and breakfast for everybody next year, or do we already know that's not going to happen?
Currently, that's not gonna happen, but it doesn't mean they're not in the talks to try to make it happen. So, SNA is always on board with trying to legislate that. It's not dead in the water yet. As of right now, though, however, everybody goes back to their status, free, reduced, or paid.
And if these prices keep going up, we may have to look at an increase in lunch prices, breakfast prices?
I am not gonna project that to the board this year.
No.
I can't, but there's a lot of districts that, when we think about it, it's gonna be a burden on the families in general. So we're gonna try to, we're pooling our numbers together. I was just at a meeting today with 12 other counties, and our bid went up like almost $2 million from what it was last year. So we're trying to pool our numbers together to make it even more valuable. Not have so many different choices, but all of us choose one certain kind of product to make the price go down. So
So then we may end up with a shortfall there, if we don't raise prices and the prices keep going up.
It won't be a shortfall, it'll be more different options taken away. I might not have 4 different main dishes, I may only have 2. Right now, we only have really 2, a cold and a hot. Under normal conditions, which we're hoping to go back up into next year, I usually have 4 to 5. So Dara and I were both talking about possibly reducing that to 2 to 3, so that we can reduce our cost on that as well. We're trying to get really creative.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a couple things?
Yes, please.
Reminded me, got a VIP parking pass for the Knapp Junior, or Knapp early college graduation tomorrow. And I think Ms. Fallon would verify this. The Potato Festival is going on in Elizabeth City tomorrow night, and
It is, so we've told all of our students and parents about that so that they're aware. My students have to arrive more than an hour before the event begins. We informed parents of that in a senior meeting that we had that was virtual, and I think we had like 89, 90-something% attendance with parents. And then I've reminded students not only in a meeting last Friday, but again in our practice yesterday.
it's a reminder for the board members.
Yeah.
We had practice
And
last week.
it's held the same weekend. We've had that issue before, and really the only issue we've ever had was traffic backing up on the bridge to get into Elizabeth City. So if you live in Modoc, I would recommend don't go that way. Go down 17, and I told the students that, the parents as well.
Okay.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Mr. Welliver, this your last work session? It is. I'd just like to thank you for everything you've done.
Sure.
And you made sure you turn that camera on you since it's never been on you. Do it now.
I'll just poke my head in.
And also Daniel and Albert, is this your last work session?
It
is. It is. And I'd like to thank you too for all your comments over the years.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
It really has.
We
So
value
proud
your
of y'all.
input and wishing you both the best.
Yes.
Good luck,
Really.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks again for everyone being here today. This time I would like to close the work session.